The symphony that shouldn't exist. The Universal Council's biggest mistake. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concordance fell silent as Ambassador Threll of the Harmonics walked to the center stage. His crystalline body refracted the chamber's soft light into rainbow patterns across the walls. Behind him, representatives from 300 civilized species waited to hear his announcement. "We have made our decision," Threll's voice resonated through the hall like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. After extensive analysis of Earth's cultural exports, the Council has concluded that human music is noise pollution. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Some species nodded in agreement. Others remained neutral. Only a few showed any sign of disagreement. Dr. Maya Okonkwo, Earth's newly appointed cultural ambassador, felt her stomach drop. She gripped the edge of her seat, trying to process what she'd just heard. 3 months of presentations, demonstrations, and passionate arguments, all dismissed with 2 words: noise pollution. The Harmonics are the galaxy's foremost experts on sound and vibration, Threll continued. We have studied music from over 10,000 species across 70 millennia. Human music lacks the mathematical precision of VRYNN symphonies. It doesn't possess the quantum harmonics of Tuluvian chants. It fails to achieve the frequency perfection of our own compositions. He paused, letting his words sink in. Therefore, Earth's application to join the cultural exchange program is denied. Humans may participate in trade and diplomatic relations, but your music will not be shared through official channels. We cannot, in good conscience, expose other species to such chaotic auditory experiences. Why humans make music? Maya stood up, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. With respect, Ambassador Threll, I think you're missing the entire point of human music. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. Speaking out of turn during a council decision was considered extremely rude. But Maya didn't care anymore. She'd spent 3 months watching alien bureaucrats analyze Bach with spectrometers and run Mozart through mathematical algorithms, completely missing what made the music beautiful. You're right, Maya continued, walking toward the center. Our music isn't mathematically perfect. We don't use quantum frequencies. Our rhythms sometimes drift, our pitch wavers, and our instruments go out of tune. But that's not a flaw. That's humanity. Threll's crystalline form flickered with what might have been annoyance. You admit your music is imperfect, yet defend it? Yes. Because perfection isn't the point. Maya pulled out her portable audio device. Music isn't just sound arranged in patterns. It's emotion translated into something you can hear. It's pain and joy and fear and hope made tangible. When humans lost people we loved, when we faced impossible odds, when we celebrated victories or mourned defeats, we made music. Not because it was perfect, but because we needed to. She pressed play. The opening notes of Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World" filled the chamber. The song was simple, nothing complex about its structure. But Armstrong's gravelly voice carried something that couldn't be measured by their instruments: pure, genuine feeling. Several alien species shifted uncomfortably. The Harmonics' crystalline bodies actually dimmed slightly, as if the music physically pained them. Turn it off, Threll demanded. This random noise proves our point exactly. There's no discipline, no control. That's a human singing about hope during one of the darkest periods in our history, Maya interrupted. We'd just finished a war that killed millions. Cities were destroyed. Families were broken. But Armstrong recorded this song to remind us that despite everything, the world was still worth fighting for. You can't measure that with your algorithms. The silence that speaks volumes. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species agreed with the Harmonics. Others began questioning whether their analysis methods were missing something important. The argument grew heated, with representatives shouting across the chamber in dozens of different languages. Ambassador Soren of the Kelthari species, who resembled a tall insect with multiple compound eyes, raised a limb for silence. Perhaps we should test this hypothesis. Dr. Okonkwo, you claim human music conveys emotion that our instruments cannot measure. Can you prove this? How? Maya asked. Play your music for someone who cannot hear it. The chamber went silent. Maya frowned, confused. If they can't hear it, how would that prove anything? Soren's translator crackled to life. My species communicates through pheromones and body language. We have no auditory organs. Sound means nothing to us, we experience the universe in chemical signals and visual patterns. Yet several Kelthari who have spent time on Earth report feeling something when humans perform their music. They cannot explain it, but they feel it nonetheless. This changed everything. Maya's mind raced. You're saying that human music affects beings who can't even hear it? I'm saying that your music might operate on frequencies we don't fully understand. Not sound frequencies, but something else. Something that transcends the physical properties of sound waves. Threll's crystalline body flashed with indignation. This is absurd. Sound is sound. It follows physical laws. There's no mysterious force. Then let us test it, Soren interrupted. The Kelthari expedition to Earth returns next month. I propose we delay the final decision until they present their findings. The council agreed, though Threll made his disapproval clear. Maya had 1 month to prove that human music was more than just imperfect noise. The human who wouldn't give up. Maya threw herself into research. She contacted every Kelthari who had visited Earth, asking them to describe their experiences. The responses were fascinating and frustrating in equal measure. One Kelthari scientist wrote, I cannot hear your music, yet when I stood in your concert halls, I felt vibrations in my thorax that seemed to resonate with emotional states I didn't know I possessed. When the humans played slow, deep sounds, I felt sadness. When they played quick, high sounds, I felt something like excitement. Another reported, I observed humans playing instruments in their subway stations. The music was simple, sometimes off-key. But the other humans passing by would stop, smile, sometimes cry. Whatever force your music carries, it affects your entire species profoundly. Maya compiled dozens of such testimonials. But she needed something more concrete, something that would convince the council that human music had value beyond technical perfection. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Chen, Earth xenobiologist, contacted her with urgent news. Maya, you need to see this. The VRYNN are dying. The VRYNN were one of the galaxy's oldest and most respected species. They'd been part of the Galactic Concordance for over 50,000 years. Their music was considered the pinnacle of sonic achievement, mathematically perfect compositions that could last for centuries without a single error. What do you mean, dying? Maya asked. Their birth rate has been declining for millennia. Now it's reached critical levels. In another 1,000 years, they'll be extinct. And Maya, they don't know why. They've tried everything. Medical interventions, genetic engineering, environmental changes. Nothing works. What does this have to do with music? James pulled up a graph on his screen. This is the VRYNN population over time. Notice anything? Maya studied the chart. The population had been stable for millions of years, then started declining around 50,000 years ago. That's when they joined the concordance. Exactly. And look at this. James overlaid another graph. This is the complexity of VRYNN musical compositions over the same period. See how they become more and more mathematically perfect? More controlled, more precise, more lifeless. Maya's eyes widened. You think their music is killing them? Not the music itself. But what the music represents. The VRYNN used to be passionate, emotional beings. Their ancient music was wild and unpredictable. But as they became more civilized, they eliminated all imperfection from their art. Now their music is flawless, and they're dying out. The concert that changed everything. Maya presented her findings to the council. The reaction was skeptical, especially from the harmonics. Thrill argued that the VRYNN's decline had nothing to do with music and everything to do with natural species life cycle. But Ambassador Vissa of the VRYNN requested permission to speak. She was ancient, her skin wrinkled and her movements slow. Dr. Okonkwo may be correct, Vissa said quietly. Our ancestors spoke of something they called the soul song. Music that came from deep within, from emotion rather than calculation. We dismissed it as primitive thinking. But our ancient texts say that the soul song was what connected VRYNN to each other, to life itself. She turned to Maya. Dr. Okonkwo, would you play us more human music? Not your technical achievements, but your soul songs. The music humans make when they forget about perfection and simply feel. Maya's hands trembled as she set up her equipment. This was it. One chance to prove that human music mattered. She didn't play classical music or complex jazz compositions. Instead, she played recordings from around Earth. A mother singing a lullaby to her baby in South Africa. Teenagers playing drums at a street festival in Brazil. An old man playing a worn guitar on a park bench in Ireland. A group of friends singing together after too many drinks in Japan. The music was imperfect. Voices cracked. Rhythms wandered. Notes were missed. But something happened in that chamber. The lights seemed to shift, though the illumination hadn't changed. The air felt different, though the temperature remained constant. And across the hall, beings from 300 different species sat in absolute silence, experiencing something they couldn't explain. Ambassador Vissa began to weep. Tears rolled down her ancient face as she listened to a human grandmother singing to her grandchildren. I remember, she whispered. I remember what it felt like to sing without worrying if every note was perfect. To sing because the joy had to come out somehow. Thrill's crystalline body flickered rapidly, colors shifting in patterns that their species used to express distress. This is not music. This is chaos. This is life, Vissa interrupted. This is what we lost. The discovery that shocked everyone. The council called a recess. Maya collapsed into her chair, emotionally exhausted. She'd given everything she had. If that wasn't enough, then nothing would be. James found her in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. You did it, he said. You actually got through to them. Maybe. Or maybe I just made things worse. Maya, look. James pointed to his datapad. While you were presenting, I was monitoring the room with every sensor we have. And I found something incredible. He showed her a complex readout. Human music generates a quantum field that we've never detected before. It's not electromagnetic, not gravitational, not any force we currently understand. It exists in the space between particles, affecting quantum states in ways that shouldn't be possible. In English, James. Your music literally changes reality at a quantum level. Not much, we're talking incredibly subtle effects. But when humans make music with genuine emotion, you're creating ripples in the quantum field that other beings can sense, even if they can't hear the actual sound. That's why the Kelthari feel something. That's why Vissa started crying. Human music touches something fundamental about consciousness itself. Maya stared at him. That's impossible. It's also measurable. I have the data right here. And Maya, the VRYNN used to create the same field. But as their music became more perfect, more controlled, the field disappeared. They optimized away the very thing that made their music meaningful. When the vote finally came. 3 days later, the council reconvened for the final vote. Ambassador Threll had clearly lobbied hard during the recess. Many species still sided with the harmonics, arguing that technical excellence should be the standard for cultural exchange. But something had shifted. Ambassador Vissa stood before the council, her posture straighter than before, her voice stronger. I propose we reject the harmonics recommendation. Human music should not only be accepted into the cultural exchange program, it should be studied by every species in the concordance. Threll's crystalline body flashed angry red. This is madness. Their music violates every principle of sonic excellence. Exactly, Vissa replied. And that's why we need it. The harmonics have led us to believe that perfection is the goal. That emotion is a flaw to be eliminated. But humans have shown us that imperfection isn't a weakness, it's the source of meaning. Their music is powerful not despite its flaws, but because of them. She turned to address the full assembly. My species is dying because we forgot how to feel. We became so obsessed with perfection that we lost touch with life itself. If we want to survive, we must learn what humans never forgot, that art isn't about technical excellence. It's about connection, about emotion, about the messy, chaotic, beautiful experience of being alive. The vote wasn't even close. 247 species voted to accept human music. Only 37 sided with the harmonics. Earth's music would be shared throughout the galaxy. Maya cried. She couldn't help it. 3 months of fighting, of being told that everything she loved about human creativity was worthless noise, vindicated in a single vote. The sound that saved species. The galaxy learns to feel again. The change didn't happen overnight. After the council's decision, Maya spent months developing a curriculum to teach other species about human music. But she quickly discovered that teaching music to beings who thought about sound completely differently was almost impossible. The harmonics, despite their opposition, sent a delegation to Earth. Threll himself led the group, his crystalline body gleaming in the sunlight as he stepped off the transport in New York City. Maya met him at the arrival terminal, expecting hostility. Instead, she found curiosity. Dr. Okonkwo, Threll said, his voice like crystal bells. I must understand. How do humans create this quantum field with such primitive instruments? We don't think about quantum fields when we play, Maya replied. We just feel. The music comes from something inside us. Emotion, memory, hope, pain, we translate those feelings into sound. But how? Where is the technique? The method? Maya smiled. That's what I've been trying to tell you. There is no method. Or rather, the method is different for every human. We don't follow rules, we follow our hearts. She took Threll to a small jazz club in Harlem that night. The venue was intimate, maybe 50 people crowded around tiny tables. The band was local, playing for tips and the love of the music. The trumpet player was old, his hands slightly shaky. The drummer occasionally missed a beat. The bassist's instrument had seen better days. It was imperfect. Beautiful. Real. Threll stood in the back, his crystalline form processing the experience. Maya watched colors shift across his body, confusion, then frustration, then something else. Something that might have been wonder. After the show, Threll approached the trumpet player. Your performance contained 17 technical errors by our standards. Yet the audience loved it. Why? The old musician laughed. Brother, if you're counting errors, you're listening wrong. Music isn't math. It's conversation. Sometimes you've gotta hit a wrong note to make the right note mean something. The experiment that changed science. Dr. James Chen's discovery of the quantum field generated by human music sparked a revolution in xenomusicology. Scientists from dozens of species descended on Earth, trying to measure and understand the phenomenon. The Kelthari were particularly fascinated. Ambassador Soren set up a permanent research station in Vienna, studying how human orchestras affected quantum states. What they discovered was remarkable. The field doesn't just exist during the music, Soren explained to Maya. It persists afterward, like ripples in a pond. Humans who regularly listen to emotionally genuine music show permanent changes in their quantum signatures. You're literally reshaping reality through art. But the most significant discovery came from studying the VRYNN. Ambassador Vissa volunteered to participate in an experiment where she would spend 6 months immersed in human music culture. She attended concerts, took music lessons, and even joined a community choir despite having no natural aptitude for human singing. The results were documented in real time. This quantum signature, which had been flat and unchanging for centuries, began to fluctuate. Her emotional range, measured through advanced neural imaging, expanded dramatically. And most remarkably, her physical health improved. She looked younger, moved with more energy, and reported feeling emotions she thought she'd lost forever. "It's working," Visa told Maya during one of their weekly check-ins. "I can feel it. The soul song is coming back." Other VRYNN began following Visa's example. They started experimenting with their own music, deliberately introducing imperfections and emotional expression. The changes were subtle at first, but measurable. For the first time in millennia, the VRYNN birth rate started to climb. When disaster struck the core worlds. 8 months after the Council's decision, catastrophe struck the galactic core. A massive spatial anomaly appeared without warning, tearing through the fabric of spacetime. Entire star systems were affected, their planetary populations subjected to quantum distortions that drove beings into catatonic states. The afflicted species simply stopped. They stood or sat wherever they were when the anomaly hit, unresponsive to all stimuli. Medical teams from across the galaxy rushed to help, but nothing worked. The affected beings weren't injured or ill, they were disconnected, as if their consciousness had been severed from reality itself. The crisis affected over 20 billion individuals across 30 species. The Galactic Concordance declared a state of emergency. Every available ship was diverted to relief efforts. Maya was coordinating Earth's response when Ambassador Soren contacted her with an urgent message. "Dr. Okonkwo, we need your music. Now." "What are you talking about?" "The quantum field. The one human music generates. I believe it can reconnect the affected beings to reality. The anomaly has disrupted their quantum signatures at a fundamental level, severing the connection between consciousness and physical existence. But the field your music creates, it operates on the same frequency. It might be able to rebuild those connections." It was a desperate theory. But with 20 billion lives at stake, they had to try. The largest concert in history. Maya assembled every musician she could find. Not just professionals, anyone who could play an instrument or sing. She put out a call across Earth, and humans responded by the millions. Amateur guitarists, church choirs, high school bands, street musicians, garage bands, retired teachers with dusty violins, everyone who had ever made music for the love of it. They couldn't all travel to the affected worlds, but they didn't need to. The Concordance set up a quantum relay network that would transmit the music, and its associated quantum field, across hundreds of light years. Every human who wanted to help could participate from Earth. The concert was scheduled to last for 72 hours straight. Musicians would perform in shifts, ensuring the music never stopped. The organizers suggested they coordinate, perform together, create unified compositions that would maximize the quantum effect. Maya vetoed that idea immediately. No coordination. No unified performance. Everyone plays what they feel, what matters to them. That's where the power comes from, the genuine emotion, not technical excellence. So they did exactly that. Across Earth, in every time zone, humans made music. A teenager played punk rock in his garage in Seattle. A grandmother sang spirituals in a church in Atlanta. A street performer played violin in Paris. A drummer beat out rhythms on makeshift drums in Lagos. A children's choir sang in Sydney. Rock bands in Tokyo, orchestras in London, traditional instruments in Mumbai, hundreds of millions of humans, all making music simultaneously, each following their own heart. The quantum readings from the relay network were off the charts. The combined field generated by all that genuine, imperfect, emotionally honest music created a wave that propagated through space faster than light itself. In the affected systems, medical teams watched in amazement as catatonic beings began to stir. Slowly at first, like waking from deep sleep. Their quantum signatures, which had been flat and lifeless, suddenly burst into complex patterns, chaos that somehow organized into consciousness. One by one, 20 billion beings opened their eyes. They looked around, confused but aware. The connection had been restored. The question nobody expected. The rescue was successful, but it raised uncomfortable questions throughout the galaxy. If human music could reconnect severed consciousness to reality itself, what else could it do? More importantly, why did humans possess this ability when other species didn't? The harmonics, humbled by the crisis, devoted their entire research apparatus to answering that question. After months of study, Thrall requested a meeting with Maya. His crystalline form was different now, less rigid, with colors flowing through him in patterns that suggested emotional depth. "We've discovered something disturbing," Thrall began. "Every species in the Concordance once possessed the ability to generate the quantum field through art. But we lost it. All of us, across millions of years of civilization. We optimized it away in our pursuit of perfection." "Why didn't humans lose it?" Maya asked. "Because humans are young. You've only had civilization for a few thousand years. You haven't had time to eliminate imperfection from your culture. But more than that, humans seem constitutionally incapable of seeking perfection. You try to improve, yes, but you never forget that flaws are what make things beautiful." He paused, his colors shifting to something that might have been admiration. "We studied your history. Every time human civilization becomes too rigid, too perfect, too controlled, you rebel. You create art movements that celebrate chaos and imperfection. You invent new music genres that break all the rules. You refuse to be optimized. That's because perfection is boring," Maya said with a smile. "Why would we want to eliminate the things that make us human?" That attitude may have saved the galaxy. If humans had lost the ability to generate the quantum field, those 20 billion beings would still be catatonic. No other species could have helped them. The treaty that united everyone. The crisis led to sweeping changes in the Galactic Concordance. The Council established a new department dedicated to preserving cultural imperfection across all species. They called it the Department of Emotional Authenticity, and they appointed Maya as its first director. Her mandate was unprecedented: travel to every member species and help them rediscover the emotional connection to their art that they'd lost. Teach them to embrace imperfection, to value feeling over technical excellence, to remember that art wasn't about being perfect, it was about being alive. The work was challenging. Many species had spent thousands of years eliminating emotion from their culture. Convincing them to reintroduce chaos and imperfection felt like asking them to move backward rather than forward. But the VRYNN provided a compelling example. 3 years after beginning their experiment with imperfect music, their birth rate had increased by 40%. More VRYNN were being born than had been in the last 5,000 years combined. Their music still wasn't technically perfect, but it was alive, and so were they. Other species began following suit. The harmonics, led by Thrall, initiated a cultural revolution. They started creating music with intentional imperfections, with emotional content, with heart. It was awkward at first, painful even. But slowly, their crystalline bodies began showing colors they hadn't displayed in eons. The most touching moment came during a joint performance between a human jazz ensemble and a harmonics crystal choir. The humans played with their characteristic emotional improvisation. The harmonics, for the first time in their recorded history, deliberately went off script, allowing themselves to respond emotionally to the music rather than following predetermined patterns. The resulting sound was unlike anything ever heard before. Human and alien, chaos and order, emotion and structure blending into something transcendent. When it ended, both species stood in stunned silence, processing what they'd just created together. Thrall approached Maya after the performance, his body cycling through colors rapidly. "Dr. Okonkwo, I must apologize. When I called human music noise pollution, I was fundamentally wrong. I was measuring with instruments instead of listening with my heart. I didn't understand that the noise, the imperfection, the chaos, that is the music. The festival that celebrated life." 5 years after the Council's original decision, the Concordance held its first Festival of Imperfect Arts. Representatives from every member species came to share their culture's most emotionally authentic expressions, not their technical masterpieces, but the art that made them feel alive. Earth sent a diverse delegation. Jazz musicians from New Orleans, opera singers from Milan, traditional drummers from West Africa, throat singers from Mongolia, rock bands from Iceland, 100 different expressions of human musical creativity. Other species brought their own contributions. The Vrynn performed their rediscovered soul songs. The harmonics played compositions that deliberately broke their mathematical rules. The Kelthari demonstrated how they'd learned to create chemical symphonies that expressed emotion. Species after species showed how they'd reconnected with the emotional heart of their art. The festival lasted for 2 weeks. It was chaotic, loud, messy, and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. Beings from 300 species danced together, cried together, laughed together, connected through art that valued feeling over form. Maya stood at the center of it all, watching the galaxy celebrate life in all its chaotic glory. Ambassador Vissa found her in the crowd. "Thank you," Vissa said simply. "You saved my species. You saved all of us, really. We were so busy trying to be perfect that we forgot how to be alive." "I just played some music," Maya replied. "You did more than that. You reminded us what we'd lost. The ability to feel without measuring, to create without calculating, to be imperfect and beautiful and alive." Vissa gestured at the celebration around them. "This is what the galaxy should be. Not perfect, but real. The legacy that echoed forever." Maya served as director of the Department of Emotional Authenticity for 25 years before retiring. In that time, she helped transform galactic culture in ways that rippled through centuries. Birth rates across previously declining species stabilized and then grew. Mental health metrics improved dramatically. Innovation flourished as beings learned to think creatively rather than always seeking optimal solutions. But the most significant change was harder to measure. The galaxy became louder, messier, more chaotic, and infinitely more alive. Music filled spaces that had been silent for millennia. Laughter echoed in halls that had only known serious discussion. Beings from radically different species found common ground in shared emotional experiences. The quantum field generated by genuine emotional expression became a focus of scientific study. Researchers discovered that it didn't just reconnect severed consciousness, it enhanced connection between all conscious beings. The more emotionally authentic art existed in the galaxy, the stronger the underlying bonds between species became. The harmonics, once the greatest advocates for perfection, became humanity's strongest supporters. Threll, in his final years, wrote a treatise called The Beauty of Discord that became required reading across the concordance. In it, he argued that imperfection wasn't a flaw to overcome but a feature that made life worth living. "Perfection is death," he wrote. "It is the end of growth, the cessation of change, the final note that rings forever without evolution. Imperfection is life, messy, chaotic, unpredictable, and infinitely precious." Earth's music spread throughout the galaxy, carried not just through official channels but through personal exchange. Alien visitors to Earth would return home with recordings of their favorite songs. Human traders would play their music in alien marketplaces. Cultural exchange became a two-way street, with human musicians incorporating alien instruments and scales into their work, while alien composers learned to embrace emotional expression. The student who carried on. Maya's successor as director was unexpected, Ambassador Threll himself. After spending years studying human music and culture, he'd transformed from its greatest critic to its most passionate advocate. His crystalline body now flowed with colors constantly, reflecting the emotional depth he'd learned to embrace. On Maya's last day in office, Threll asked her a question. "What made humans different? Why didn't you eliminate imperfection like the rest of us?" Maya thought about it carefully. "Maybe because we knew we were imperfect. We're short-lived compared to most galactic species. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We make mistakes constantly. But instead of being ashamed of that, we learn to find beauty in it. Our music is just one expression of a deeper truth. that being flawed is okay. That struggling and failing and getting back up is what makes life meaningful. The galaxy needed to learn that lesson, Thrall said. We'd become so obsessed with being superior that we forgot to be alive. Humans saved us from ourselves. We just shared our music, Maya replied. Everything else came from that. The sound that never stops. 20 years after Maya's retirement, a new spatial anomaly appeared, far larger and more dangerous than the first. This time, it threatened to sever quantum connections across entire galactic arms. Billions of beings would be affected. But this time, the galaxy was ready. Every species, not just humans, generated music with genuine emotional content. The combined quantum field they created was powerful enough to stabilize the entire affected region. The anomaly was contained, and not a single being lost consciousness. Maya, now elderly but still active, watched the response from her home on Earth. She smiled as reports came in from across the galaxy. Drynn soul songs, harmonic crystal choirs, Kelthery chemical symphonies, human jazz, rock, classical, folk, hundreds of species, all making imperfect, emotionally honest music together. The galaxy had learned. Not just to tolerate imperfection, but to celebrate it. To understand that the flaws weren't bugs in the system, they were what made the system beautiful. A message came through on Maya's communication device. It was from Thrall, now ancient by his species' standards but still serving as director. His crystalline body, visible in the holographic projection, shimmered with more colors than Maya had ever seen. Dr. Okonkwo, I wanted you to know, we've detected the quantum field spreading beyond our galaxy. Other galaxies are beginning to respond, creating their own music in reply. Whatever you started 5 decades ago, it's becoming universal. The entire universe is learning to sing. Maya laughed, tears running down her weathered face. That's the thing about music, Thrall. It wants to be shared. It wants to spread. Because at its heart, music is connection, and connection is what makes the universe worth existing in. Epilogue, the symphony continues. 100 years after the Council's decision to accept human music, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The rigid hierarchies of perfection had given way to chaotic creativity. Species that hadn't spoken to each other in millennia found common ground through shared emotional expression. Wars ended not through treaties but through mutual understanding fostered by artistic exchange. The Department of Emotional Authenticity, now led by a rotating council of species, established music education programs on every inhabited world. Children of every species learned not just the technical aspects of music, but its emotional heart. They learned that making mistakes was okay, that feeling deeply was strength rather than weakness, that imperfection was beauty. Maya passed away peacefully at the age of 98, surrounded by family and friends from a dozen species. Her funeral became a celebration that lasted 3 days, with musicians from across the galaxy performing in her honor. They played human music, alien music, and hybrid compositions that blended both. It was loud, chaotic, messy, and perfect in its imperfection. The legacy she left behind wasn't just acceptance of human music. It was a fundamental shift in how the galaxy understood existence itself. Before humans joined the Concordance, most species saw life as a problem to be optimized, emotions as inefficiencies to be eliminated, and art as a technical achievement to be perfected. Humans taught them different. Life wasn't a problem, it was an experience. Emotions weren't inefficiencies, they were what made existence meaningful. And art wasn't about technical perfection, it was about connection, about sharing the experience of being alive with others who understood. The quantum field generated by emotionally authentic music continued to strengthen. Scientists discovered that it did more than reconnect consciousness or stabilize anomalies. It actually enhanced consciousness itself, making every being in the galaxy more aware, more connected, more alive. And somewhere in the cosmic background, underneath all the other sounds of the universe, there was music. Not the perfect mathematical harmonies that the harmonics once believed in, but something richer, the sound of billions of beings, all imperfect, all struggling, all alive, all creating beauty from their flaws. They called it the Universal Symphony. Not because it was unified or coordinated, but because everyone was playing their own part, following their own heart, contributing their own imperfect voice to the grand chaotic chorus of existence. And it was beautiful.